Okay, I just want to start this video off by just stating the obvious. Okay, there's no leak sources, there's no articles, there's nothing really talking about a potential remaster of either Battlefield Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3. It's just me talking about, should EA do it, what are the pros and cons about it, and yeah, that's pretty much effectively what the video will cover, so hopefully stick around to find out. Okay, so overall, why did I bring this up? Well, a couple of days ago on Battlefield 2042, yes, believe it or not, I was actually playing 2042, there was actually a featured game mode called Battlefield Bad Company 2 versus Battlefield 3 Team Deathmatch. Now realistically, what this was pretty much just you playing on the Battlefield 2042 maps with the weapons of Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3, and it really got me thinking, could EA actually remaster either of those two games? Now, on one hand you could say, well, why would you want to remaster them? Surely there's no point at this stage, especially with Portal. You could make that argument. Also, my dog's only after letting out the biggest breath of his life, I don't know why, but that aside. But coming off the back of talking about Portal, that's actually why I do believe that they could successfully make a remaster here, because like I said, they already have a lot of the elements of both those games via Portal, and Portal, whether you like it or not, is probably still the most played aspect of 2042. Yes, there's some bugs here and there with it, and there's also a lot of issues when it comes to servers and whatnot, but at the end of the day, Portal is actually a really good implement because it allows players to effectively play the older games remastered, so it really got me thinking, would EA actually do it? Now, obviously the problem with EA potentially wanting to do a remaster of a Battlefield game is that a lot of the developers that work at DICE currently, or even Ripple Effect, if they're sort of seen as the support studio at the minute, even though they're developing their own game. The problem is that a lot of the developers that worked on Bad Company 2 and even Battlefield 3 are no longer at DICE or even at EA. A lot of these developers went off to pretty much work as their own sort of brand, we'll call it, so they have more creative freedom. And I really think that that's the issue with doing a remaster, is that you won't have the creative freedom that maybe you would have if you were maybe working at EA a couple of years ago, because make no mistake, Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2, they weren't necessarily seen as EA's big attempt of, oh, this is going to be the game that's going to put the Battlefield franchise on par with Call of Duty, ahead of Medal of Honor, if you will. This is pretty much just, man, let's do it pretty much just to see what we can do here. And the reason I say that is this: Battlefield, for the most part of its history, has always been a PC exclusive game. Now, you'll always have people saying, well, they had console games with Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. That's true, but that was more or less just a watered down version of Battlefield 2 for the consoles. Other than that, there had never been a Battlefield game on the actual consoles until Battlefield Bad Company 1, which was an exclusive on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 at the time. Now, a reason I do truthfully believe that they actually brought this game out on the console was because up until that point, EA had made sure that their sort of console FPS game was primarily the Medal of Honor franchise. You had games like Airborne, Vanguard, Frontline, Rising Sun, etc. that were all console-based games and had a long lineage. Battlefield had never really dipped into the console situation here, and EA decided what we're going to do is we're going to take the Medal of Honor franchise out for a couple of years and then reboot it. But we need something to fill that sort of void, because if we don't have a shooter game in that market, well, we'll lose out on that market, and effectively Call of Duty will own the market. Now, don't get me wrong, Call of Duty pretty much did own the market from like 2007, arguably until 2014 maybe. But realistically, at this point, there was nothing really from EA that they had in the framework that they could say, you know what, we'll do this, we'll throw this game out, until they made Bad Company 1. Now, like I say, Bad Company 1 was an exclusive on the consoles, and the reason I do think it is an exclusive on the consoles was pretty much to effectively replace Medal of Honor, because EA up until that point, like I said, had constant Medal of Honor releases on console. In 2007 alone, EA had 3 Medal of Honor games that released in 1 year. You had Vanguard for the last gen at that time, which was the PS2, and I do believe the original Xbox, I might be wrong with that, it might have been the Wii. You also had Heroes, which released on the PSP as an exclusive, and then you had Airborne, which pretty much was a PC, Xbox 360 and PS3 game. So you had 3 games in the 1 year, and then in 2008, obviously the year that the first Bad Company game came out, we actually had no Medal of Honor games, so EA sort of needed a first person shooter in there, and let's be honest, Battlefield for the most part was not really campaign driven, so it wasn't, whereas Bad Company really did take a direction of, cinematic approach in terms of characters. The characters, if you ask many people will say Bad Company's characters are the best characters in Battlefield, so they're actually the 2 best campaigns of the Battlefield franchise. Now, I know there's a lot of people who like the Battlefield 4 campaign, a lot of people like Battlefield 3, but if you compare the campaigns, Bad Company duology, we'll call it, I do believe that's the name of a 2-parter instead of a trilogy, they are often seen as the standard of campaigns of what the Battlefield franchise should always try and aspire to be when it comes to the campaign story. And I agree with that. I do believe that the Bad Company campaigns are the best campaigns of the franchise, so they are. Later installments I think went a bit too dark. For instance, Battlefield 3, tried being super serious, and the problem with being a super serious campaign, when your last campaign, even though it's classed as a spin-off, which Bad Company 1 and 2 were, they were spin-off games, they went for a more comedic approach to it, whereas Battlefield 3 and arguably Battlefield 4 went for a real serious, big budget Michael Bay aspect sort of campaign. And I think a lot of this was to try and capture the Call of Duty audience, because Call of Duty had primarily focused on big explosive campaigns, whereas Battlefield was sort of seen as a much more linear experience. Now again, Bad Company 1 and 2 were spin-offs, we'll have to keep that part clear. So they were not sort of intended by EA or DICE to compete, but they blew expectations away. They did something that really shocked a lot of people. And what happened then with Bad Company 2, it actually wasn't an exclusive on the console. PC players were actually able to get it. And with Bad Company 2, you actually had the introduction of the Frostbite Engine. Now, I don't believe any of this would have came unless it was, of course, for the success of Bad Company 1. Like I said, Bad Company 1 was exclusive on console alone. And again, I do believe it was somewhat of a replacement for the Medal of Honor franchise. But it blew expectations out of the water. People loved it, critics loved it, and it sold very well. So EA knew at this point, we can do something with this. Now, fast forward, like I say, to Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 was a much more serious campaign, so it was much more darker, grittier tone. But the multiplayer kept what Battlefield fans loved from the previous game of Bad Company 2. Destructible environments, a new version of the Frostbite Engine, and, despite what many people say, the blue tone. Some people actually like the blue tone, I hate it, I think it's ridiculous, but anyway, I'm not going to go too far into that. The point is, when it comes to what Battlefield 3 sort of delivered with Battlefield Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3 delivered a much more enjoyable multiplayer experience, a bigger multiplayer experience, more destructible environments, a lesser fun campaign, let's be fair. But overall, why should EA actually consider remastering these games? Is the principle of this video. I've rambled on for long enough, let's get to the basis of it. The number one reason why I truly believe EA should consider remastering Battlefield Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3 is one thing, and that is the failure of 2042. And make no mistake about it, 2042, if you ask me, is in a much better state now than what it was when it first launched. But the initial launch problems really drove a lot of players away. So many people actually got fed up with the game and just give up on it. A lot of people are actually still holding out for a refund, and a lot of people are actually at this point still refusing to even play the game because they see it as an unfinished mess. The game pretty much was unfinished when it released. Even the aspects of Portal, there was a lot of bob farming and so forth just for people to get XP and stuff. Portal was sort of seen as the saving grace of the game, but overall even that launched as a bit of a mess. Now, again, I do believe this was because EA just threw the game out before it was even close to being finished, and DICE really didn't have much input on the game, especially when you consider that the pandemic was going on as the game was being created. My only counter argument for that would be, well, Call of Duty, their developers were going through a pandemic, but they created Cold War and Vanguard, and despite what many people think about those games, at least the games feel finished to a degree. Maybe not so much Vanguard, but overall Cold War was right in the heart of the pandemic and it released okay. So that would be strike one, and the reason why I think EA should actually consider remastering, because you'll bring a lot of players back so you will, and also you'll bring the sales that you want. That's the number one thing that EA really look at more than anything. If a game comes out and is critically acclaimed but doesn't sell well, EA won't follow through on it, so don't, because their goal is always to make sales. And if you bring out a bundle of remasters of Battlefield 3 and Bad Company 2, I do believe that the sales alone would do better than 2042, so they would. Now here's my counter argument to that. EA at the minute are heavily pushing 2042, especially with Season 1 coming out in the next couple of days. At the time of recording this, Season 1 actually drops within a couple of days, so it does, of 2042. Now Season 1 should have dropped a long time ago, but I'll let bygones be bygones, I'm going to let that slide. I'm still a bit annoyed about it. So why would EA even consider remastering two games that are effectively just going to compete with themselves? They will be competing against themselves, and the games effectively will consume each other. There's something similar really happened here with Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remastered. Now make no mistake about it, Modern Warfare Remastered was just bundled with Infinite Warfare because Activision knew that the game alone would not sell well, and that they knew that they sort of needed to get that shareholders' expectation of sales in. Now when it comes to EA's in a similar situation. They are all speaking to shareholders. The only people EA is interested in listening to is their shareholders, and if they aren't satisfying the shareholders, effectively what happens is that they'll lose out on funds, which EA, as we all know, they like the money. So that's one reason as to why EA probably won't do it, because like I say, it'll just take players away from their flagship or the game that they're trying happily to promote, especially with Season 1 around the corner. So realistically, I don't see it happening anytime soon because of that. With that being said, could it happen maybe down the line? Now, if we look at the Battlefield franchise, we know that articles came out in the last couple of weeks saying that EA is sort of taking a long approach, they're taking a long look at the Battlefield franchise and seeing what works. Now, I've done a couple of videos in the past talking about, what I believe EA's 2023 shooter is going to be. Initially, people would have thought it would have been Battlefield because on average, Battlefield releases a game every 2 years. But like I say, with leaks and articles coming out suggesting that EA is actually going to release the next Battlefield game in 2024, it makes perfect sense that EA will need a shooter in 2023. Now, I personally have done videos in the past where I've spoke about what this shooter could be. I personally do believe it's Ripple Effects game that they're currently working on, and I also believe it's a Medal of Honor game. Now, that being said, I've no sort of sources on it, I've no proof, I have nothing really to go off. So let's speculate again for a bit of fun. Let's talk about 2023. Let's say, for instance, the game Ripple Effects working on is not a Medal of Honor game. I, again, have to stress, I do believe it is a Medal of Honor game that they're working on. Again, if you want to see any of those videos, all the links will be in the description below. But let's say, for instance, that Ripple Effect, who are the support studio of 2042, who are the team that developed Portal, may I just add, are actually working on remasters. It would actually probably make a lot of sense because think about it, they've already sort of remastered a lot of the elements of those two games to put within 2042. So they've worked extremely heavily when it comes to Portal, so to have support in the game and also implementing previous maps, maybe like Snow Shark canals into the game. So realistically, they have the elements sort of sitting there, and they've shown that they're a confident enough studio to actually throw these into it. Like I said, the gameplay you see in the background is me obviously using the Battlefield Bad Company 2 weapons with us. I'm going to be honest with you, the weapons feel really great so in hand. I actually feel like, I'm being honest, they actually feel a lot better than the 2042 weapons. So on that side of things, I could actually see it maybe working out well because it honestly feels like Ripple Effect is a studio that knows what they're doing and has an idea of what works and what doesn't work. But yeah, that's pretty much been my opinions on do I think a remaster of these two games could potentially happen down the line. I do actually think down the line that they will remaster. There's a slight chance maybe 2023 could be the remaster of one of these two games, if not both. I personally am still in the bandwagon that I believe it's a Medal of Honor game Ripple Effects working on in 2023. So sorry to disappoint anyone who may be looking forward to Battlefield 3 and Battlefield Bad Company 2 Remastered. But you know what, I've been wrong many times before, I'll be wrong in the future, but I hope I'm not wrong on that. But down the line I'm sure that they will eventually someday remaster the games in full. But if you guys agree with this video, please tell me what you think they should do. If you like the video, obviously leave a like. If you dislike it makes a lot of sense, I suppose. And yeah, I've been encouraging you. Thanks for checking out the video, guys. Peace.